Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico, hoopswire.com here on Hoopswire Live on 330 to go. We've got a busy weekend for the Cavaliers. All of a sudden, everything is ramping back up. And from here until the end of April, we are going to be back to your normally scheduled NBA schedule, which is going to be incredibly busy and daunting, and as they like to call it, the dog days of the NBA season. I don't know what dog days means or if that's an insult to dogs, but regardless, it's going to get busy again after I think it was 3 games in 15 days, maybe, or 14 days, something like that. Felt like the NBA, as everybody was calling it, the NBA's bye week, even though they'd have a game each week. It wasn't their usual fare. But guess what? 3 games in 4 nights. If you're watching this live, Friday at home against the Milwaukee Bucks, Saturday at home against the Philadelphia 76ers, then Monday at home against the Utah Jazz and old friends Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen, who were traded to Utah, of course, in as part of the Donovan Mitchell trade, which has worked out incredibly well for the Cleveland Cavaliers and not yet well for the Utah Jazz, although the Jazz do have an abundance of draft picks in that trade from the Cavaliers. So that's what's going on with the Cavs. They enter the weekend with the NBA's best record at 23-4. They're 2 games in front of the Boston Celtics, if you're just keeping track of the Eastern Conference standings. They are, I believe, 7 or 8 games ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks, who just won the NBA Cup. I don't know if that means anything to you. It doesn't really mean anything to me, and I'm not so sure it means anything to the Bucks. But anyway, so that's who the Cavs have on the docket. The Bucks have been playing incredibly well lately, but the Cavs have a nice lead over them in the Central Division standings. I know we're in an era when you're not really paying attention to the division standings. We're looking at the conference standings. I'm a traditionalist, so you would think a guy like me would be looking at the standings. I don't anymore either. I just look at who's leading each conference. And in the Eastern Conference, again, that's the Cavaliers. In fact, they're leading the entire NBA right now. So these are some, I won't go into it because we're kind of doing a little bit of a special Hoops Wire Live here on another topic, which is league-wide topic and really basketball-wide topic if you think about it. But the Cavs are comfortably in front in the Eastern Conference, and these are some big games in terms of, Milwaukee's coming in hot. Try and maintain. If you remember the 2 games the Cavs played in Milwaukee, both of those went down to the last possession. Cavs won both of those games, but they were not easy. So, Milwaukee's coming in hoping to make a statement. Funny thing is, when Doc Rivers was in Cleveland last time, Milwaukee's coach, of course, the Bucks' minority owner is no less than Jimmy Haslam, who owns the Cleveland Browns. Doc Rivers talked about Jimmy Haslam, talked about how, yes, I talk to him every day. We have good conversations. And at the time, the Bucks were like 2-8 when they played the Cavs at last time. Now they're, I believe, 14-11. So really made a turnaround. But at that time, somebody had mentioned to Doc Rivers, like, are you worried at all about even making the playoffs at 2-8? And Doc Rivers said, stop it. We're going to make the playoffs. And you know what? He's right. They will. So, big game for the Cavs at home against a team that it really expects to contend in the Eastern Conference and probably will be there in contention by the end of the year with the way they're playing. So, all that aside, the title of this show is, Are NBA Players Taking Too Many Three-Pointers? Now, before I get into this, let me tell you, before I give you my own thoughts, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, discussed this at the NBA Cup in Las Vegas when he met with reporters, talked about the volume of three-pointers being taken in the NBA today. which is outlandish. The Boston Celtics are shooting like close to 50 a game a lot of nights. That's more than half their shots are three-pointers. Now, they're the defending champs, so they must be doing something right. B.J. Armstrong, who many of you may know, played with Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, was a point guard on those teams. He and Mark Price used to have some real battles. Interestingly, I think it was the 96-97 season, Mark Price and B.J. Armstrong became teammates with the Golden State Warriors for a year. So, and B.J. went on to become an NBA agent representing players. Anyway, he came out very, very strongly about the volume of three-pointers that are being taken in the game today. We've heard Charles Barkley. We've heard, national guys like Colin Cowherd, Dan Patrick, media members who have all discussed this week. The whole reason the commissioner brought it up was mostly because it's been a hot topic on social media. Now, so we're factoring in the three-pointers. It wouldn't be that big of a concern, I don't think, if the ratings weren't so poor for the NBA right now. I think regionally and locally, people are really tuning into the Cavs. So this is really a national discussion because locally the Cavs have done very well in terms of drawing eyeballs and drawing excitement at a time of year where people are still talking about who's going to quarterback the Cleveland Browns. I mean, that's usually the topic at this time of year, unfortunately, and it dominates the airwaves when you're talking about, except for here on 330 to go, but when you're talking about, the local radio stations, the sportscasts at night, it's usually at this point the Browns. Even though they're a dumpster fire, they're still a story, right? And the Cavs are a story as well because they're playing so well. So what I'm saying here does not really relate specifically to the Cavs, although they do obviously shoot a lot of three-pointers, So a lot of people are saying that the game has become too perimeter-oriented. It was okay when it became somewhat perimeter-oriented. Now it's like way too perimeter-oriented. Now let me preface all this by saying this. I still play basketball. I played in high school, Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy. I played a couple years in college, Northeastern Christian Junior College, and then I decided, you know what? I'm short, I'm slow, and I have to work twice as hard as everybody else, so I'm done after 2 years. But you're talking to a guy, or at least the guy is talking to you, who stands behind my entire game is standing behind the three-point line and waving my arms like I'm hailing down a taxi, waiting to take a three-point shot. That's my game. So for me to come out and talk about three-pointers, obviously I'm impartial to them because, that was the style of basketball I played. And obviously we've seen the rise of great three-point shooting during this past decade, right? The Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry being the poster child for the way the game has changed. Obviously, Klay Thompson when he was there in his prime. Now we have 7-footers going out and taking three-pointers. Karl Anthony Towns, I believe, won a three-point shooting contest. Kevin Love. These guys were talking 6'10" to 7 feet tall going out and burying three-pointers, which 25 years ago was unheard of. You were 6'10" or 7 foot. You played near the basket, period. You were Jared Allen, right? You were not attempting threes. And obviously you had greats like, Patrick Ewing, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon. Those guys, they didn't go out beyond really 10, 12 feet from the basket, and they're all-time greats, So is the NBA, are they taking too many threes? And is it trickling down to basketball at the lower levels where these teams are taking too many threes? The short answer to that, as somebody who has watched the NBA and loves the NBA and has made my living off the NBA, the answer is yes. There's no doubt about it. There's too many 3-pointers. You know, it's just like anything else in life. We talk about this all the time. Here's a little life lesson here on Hoops Wire Live that you probably didn't expect. And I surely didn't ever expect to give. But it's okay in moderation, right? maybe slightly more than moderation in the case of NBA 3-pointers. You know, but when that's all it becomes, when there are 79 3-pointers between two teams in one game, that's too much. It's too much. And why is it too much? Because it's bad to watch. And, you know, let me put it to you the way a scout put it to me. And he said, listen, the guys who are NBA GMs right now are part of the video game generation. When they played video games, they would bring the ball up and they would shoot threes with their video game players, NBA 2K players, and they started to realize, you know what, if I make 34% or 33.3% or whatever the math is there on threes, I'm going to beat somebody who shoots 50% on twos, or at least tie them, right? So, and BJ Armstrong on his podcast came out and said the one thing he hates about the NBA game, and here is somebody who, like myself, is talking to NBA general managers, executives, scouts, coaches all the time, said what he hates about the NBA game is these guys in charge, the men running basketball at the highest level, are telling him and telling me and telling everybody who will listen, particularly the players, that a 2-point shot is a bad shot. Now it's out of control. Now it's not basketball anymore. You know what it is? It's a carnival. You're at a carnival. You're shooting long distance shots. It's a shooting competition. Now let me add this. Excuse me. I've only had one cup of coffee, so my throat is. But let me add this. When I'm sitting there watching an NBA game and covering the Cavs, I don't look at it like teams. I'm not sitting there thinking, boy, these teams are taking too many 3-pointers. So I think there's that element of it. Now, I'm somebody who's going to watch the NBA regardless, right? I'm paid to do it. You know, so I have enjoyed the games. At the same time, I look back at the game 10, 12 years ago, and I just think there was so much more ball movement. Adam Silver came out and called it cookie cutter offenses, whereas basically every offense is the point guard either pulling up for a three or driving, the defenses collapse, and they kick it out to somebody else to shoot a three. That's your offense. It's not real great on the eyes. It's not great for the eye test. The NBA has lost a lot of older fans. As somebody who's older and covers the NBA, when, you know, I talk to the boomers or people my age, Gen X, or even my own kids say, you know, but let's stick on the older crowd. They're like, these guys are just dribbling down and shooting a three. That's the offense. That's not pleasing to the eye. It's not, if you're tuning in to watch a basketball game, there's no strategy. And guess what? That means it's not a sport. It's a competition. And it's a 3-point shooting competition. I think that, you know, hearing Adam Silver, hearing BJ Armstrong, hearing Charles Barkley, hearing guys like Dan Patrick and these so-called, you know, big-time national media members, Colin Cowherd, hearing them say it is one thing and, you know, take that all into account. But guess who else came out and talked about this just the other day? LeBron James. LeBron James said he was asked about the new format for the All-Star game, which is a tournament format, which I'm not going to get into that. I think it's a good idea because this East versus West stuff, sadly, is not working anymore. We just live in a different time. Doesn't make it better, doesn't make it worse. It's just different. That's the way I look at, a big part of how the NBA has changed. If the ratings weren't so awful, we wouldn't have these discussions. I would just be like, this is the way the game is, and everybody clearly likes it. Now, I know people are saying, well, the ratings are awful for everybody because of streaming, illegal streaming, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? The NFL ratings are up. Soccer ratings are up. Major League Baseball ratings are up. Yellowstone ratings are up. And I know here on the 330 to go, we talk about that frequently. And I've had to not read them because I'm not caught up on Yellowstone yet. And that's real information why you tune in to see where Sam Amico stands on his Yellowstone viewing. But I'm getting closer to the end. Anyway, so all of these ratings everywhere else are up. The NBA are coming down to 1970s level. Bad. What do? LeBron James told the media the other day when asked about, the All-Star tournament format, he said, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to like it. Guess we'll have to wait and see. And then you know what he added? Our game, we have a bigger discussion than that, though. Our game is struggling and suffering because, he said, three-point shooting's out of control. LeBron James said that. And, a lot of this stuff, what I don't like about the NBA, and it's never going to change, at least the narrative surrounding the NBA, because I say it on here all the time, and I don't know that it makes much of a difference, but it's not the players. And the players take all the flack for all of this. They take flack, all these guys just shoot threes, or these guys are doing load management. This is the teams. This is the people running basketball. The players are just doing what the coaches and the GMs want them to do, which is take an abundance of three-point shots. That's what they want them to do. So they're doing it. They want them to sit out for 2 weeks, and this isn't to downplay injuries, because injuries are real, but some of them are more severe than others. So you want them to sit out for 2 weeks when they have a tweak on their elbow, a bruise somewhere. The teams are the ones holding them out. The guys want to play. So if you're wondering why maybe you're not enjoying the NBA like you used to, or why ratings are down, it's not because of the men in uniform and the players. It's because of the people running basketball. I had a scout tell me the other day, Adam Silver's the nicest commissioner in the history of sports. And you know what? Having interviewed Adam Silver, I would agree. But he followed it up with, nice doesn't get you to the top. You look at David Stern, who some of you may know was the late David Stern, who was the commissioner before Adam Silver, who Adam Silver worked under. David Stern really got a lot of people ticked off, but the game was flourishing under him. And then you know what this scout told me? It goes back to Michael Jordan's line. In order to get to the top, you've got to hurt some feelings along the way. That's Michael Jordan's line. It's a little harsh, but guess what? If you're Adam Silver, you're running a business, and your responsibility is to get that business noticed, sold, and flourishing. Adam Silver's trying everything, right? NBA Cup. Come on. There's nobody who it comes out stronger against the NBA Cup that I've talked to than NBA legends. These guys are just like, what is this? Mark Price, I've gone on his podcast. He just comes out and makes fun of it. I can tell you other guys have not gone on the record, but there's some NBA legends who I've spoken with who are just like, what are they doing here? This is not soccer. Soccer, it works great because guess what? They've been doing it since the 1800s in Europe. In the United States, I think people are confused. There are some people who like it. Look, I don't dislike it. I'm just like, I don't understand the purpose. To me, the regular season games with funny colored courts, so just call it that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our regular season game with a funny colored court. I'm sold, but I'm not the guy that you have to reach because I'm going to watch anyway. I'm not the guy who's saying, I'm tuning out because there's too many three-pointers. Wouldn't do that. My oldest boy asked me the other day, would you be watching the NBA if it weren't your job? That's how you know if you're enjoying the NBA. And after I told him he was grounded, I said I said that I'd be watching the Cavs. Yeah, I mean, because they're obviously having a dynamite year. Would I be tuning into, say, the Boston Celtics at the New York Knicks? Not as much as I used to. Not as much as I used to. Why is that? I can't pinpoint it. Other than, probably I'm, believe it or not, slightly older now. I've got other responsibilities. So it's hard for me to sit down and just watch a game. I feel like I'm always on the run. And I watch so many Cavs games, pretty much, I mean, I might miss one or two a year. You're talking 82 games in the playoffs. I might miss 2. And even then, I catch at least part of it. So, I'm already watching a lot of basketball. So I don't know where I would stand, but I don't like the volume of three-pointers. Because here's why I don't like it. Because you don't like it. And I don't think it's good basketball. Look, I've been around a long time, obviously. I started as a full-timer in 2007 covering the NBA. I saw the game then. 17 years later, it's totally, totally different. Some people blame Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, and that Warriors offense was the first offense where the three-pointer was the only shot you wanted to take. And the only other shot, if you couldn't get a three-pointer, then you get a dunk or a layup at the rim. The mid-range game was destroyed. And guess what? The Warriors won that way. I actually heard a scout jokingly, and I wouldn't like this either, but he jokingly said they should have 2 blocks on each side, 13 and 17 feet from the hoop. Get rid of the arc and make those mid-range games worth 3 points. Those 2 blocks on each side that are 13 and 17 feet from the hoop. He said, I guarantee you basketball would be a lot better because guys would be working to get to those spots, and those spots would be more meaningful, and we would see the return of the big man. Now, Adam Silver said something the other day that I thought was good too. He said, we don't want this. This is not the game that we want and the game that we're trying to sell, because guess what? They can't sell it because nobody's watching, right? Now, who would be calling me during 330 to go? Must be spam. To my girlfriend, spam. She calls like 4 times a day. Anyway, should I have said that while I'm on a live program? Anyway, so my point is that you look at basketball and it's all one thing. And I think that's, as somebody who's been not only covering the game for a long time, but following the game a long time, that's where I get troubled. And it's not just the offenses are all the same. They really are, for the most part. It's who can run this offense the best, which is an abundance of threes, getting our 7-footers out away from the basket to shoot threes, because twos are anymore. A 2-point shot is an act of desperation. Used to be reversed. Right? The 3-point shot used to be the act of desperation. And now it's your entire offense. And I do think that that's a problem. But Adam Silver said, look, nobody wants the game to go back to this 90 or in the 90s when the scores were 82-79, the final scores, where things were congested inside. There has to be a mix. Here's where the problem lies. And I'm not against analytics, but this is where the problem lies. I saw one scout told me analytics almost ruined baseball and it's almost going to ruin basketball before we get it fixed. I don't know what that means, but I will tell you this. That's why so many three-pointers are being taken, because of analytics. Right or wrong, that's the reason. So, and in reality, the math does add up. You know, if you shoot 34% on threes, you're going to score more than you shoot 50% on twos. And guess what? In today's NBA, a lot of teams are shooting right around there on threes. Now, there are some teams that shoot the three very well that don't win. Chicago Bulls, a little less than 500 basketball. They're like 13-15 entering the weekend. They shoot the three very well. But they don't defend, they don't rebound, they don't do the other little things. So you still got to do those things. But really, it's if your threes are dropping, like we saw the Cavs against the Atlanta Hawks, the Hawks shot three-pointers out of their mind. And Cavs couldn't beat them either game. There's another theory out there. Again, this is NBA people talking. This is not my theory. I'm just passing it along. You want to talk about injuries? And this was from a guy I really respect, a scout I really respect. I'd give you his name. He played in the NBA, but he didn't tell me this on the record. But I'm going to give you the gist. I'll just tell you what he said. This pace and space era of everybody being around the three-point line and defenders having to run out at them is responsible for some of these leg injuries. Because guys have to cover and foot and leg, because they have to cover more ground now. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a theory, and it's not just his. It's making its way through the NBA. So analytics have created this three-point monster that we're seeing in the NBA today. What do I think? I think there's too many of them. I think that we've gotten away from what made the NBA great, in my opinion. And that was every team had a different character. Now we live in a cookie-cutter copycat era where every team wants to be the next Golden State Warriors. Well, here's a news flash for you, by the way. The Golden State Warriors lost by 41 points last night. They lost by 40 in Cleveland. So when the three-pointers aren't going, the guys are still taking them. Steph Curry was 0 of 7. Draymond Green was 0 of 8, I think. Well, these guys are getting older. Going to see more of these games from them. Steph Curry had 2 points. Played like 25, 26. He played more than half the game. He would have played more than that, but it was a blowout. He had 2 points. Steph Curry. You live by the three, you die by the three. They used to say that about offenses. And guess what? That's the entire NBA offenses today. Live by the three, die by the three. Now you could say that about the entire league, right? They lived by the three. People ate it up. Ratings were great when LeBron was facing, the Cavs were facing the Warriors in the finals from 2014 to 2018 every year. Ratings were through the roof. Now, it became too much of a good thing. We hear that about everything in life, right? It's okay in moderation. But when it becomes your only thing, then it's an obsession and it can lead to your downfall. And the NBA, I don't believe, is on its way to a downfall. But it's struggling. It's struggling to generate interest. Here in Cleveland, we have no problem with that. We watch the Cavs, love the Cavs, don't think about too many three-pointers. Just enjoy the fact that this team is humming along. You know, that's the sense I get from all of my friends and the men's basketball league I play in which I shoot way too many threes and don't really defend. because I don't want to get hurt. When that scout told me that, I thought, well, I'm pacing space. I'll just stand in the same spot. At any rate, so I don't think this applies to on a local level. But nationally, when you're talking about games on ESPN or NBA TV that people are tuning into just to watch, I can tell you, I will not be watching the Chicago Bulls against the Memphis Grizzlies on a Tuesday night. Wouldn't even be a thought. I could see that game's going to be on NBA TV, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not watching. That would be the only thought I'd give it. All I know is I'm not watching that. If the Carolina Panthers were playing the Chicago Bears on a Tuesday night, Thursday night, I'd probably be like, wow, there's something to do. NFL's on tonight. The NBA is never going to have that grip on people. But if the Chicago Bulls and Memphis Grizzlies did more than just run the same offense and shoot a bunch of threes and had some character to them, the records wouldn't matter to me. If there was something about one of those teams, it's, to me, watching Zach LaVine for the Bulls is the same as watching James Harden. And by that, I mean, these are two guys who are going to take 15 three-pointers. There's very little different about their games. Now, Harden just does it a lot better. Harden is probably a better passer. But my point is, I know the gist of what all these 6'3" to 6'8" wings, I know what they're going to do tonight. They're going to come out and shoot a bunch of threes. Can the other team stop them? There's no drama in that to me. Very little drama. So, look, it doesn't matter what I think. That's what I tell people all the time. It doesn't matter. My opinion on this doesn't matter. It's not going to make or break the NBA. It's not really one opinion. It's the overriding opinions of the fans. And guess what? The fans are telling us what they think of the NBA. The majority of fans, the casual fans, which makes up the majority of your earnings in the NBA. It's not diehards like us. We're always going to say, yeah, NBA's great, love it. Don't ever talk bad about the NBA. We're diehards. If the NBA tried to survive on diehards, be broke right now. Be out of business. It's got to be the casual fans that you're drawing in. And guess what? You're not. They're not watching the games. Is the too much three-point shooting the only issue? I don't know. To me, that's the one that's most recognizable and the one that's creating the most buzz. How do you fix that? Above my pay grade, as most things are. I don't know. I mean, do you change the rules? I've had in these discussions, I've had people suggest things. Maybe you put a cap on how many you can take a game. I don't know that I like that idea. And you get 25 three-pointers a game. That's it. I don't know that I like that idea. I don't think I do. I personally think if you ask me how you get rid of so many three-pointers, you get somebody who doesn't just follow everybody else, which is where the term, cookie cutter offense comes from. You get somebody who puts two big guys down there, 2 7-footers, and says, plant yourselves under the basket. We're going to win this way. Cavs almost did that when they had Mobley, Jared Allen, and Markkanen. The rest of the league was playing small ball, and the Cavs were like, you know what, we're rolling out 3 7-footers. And it looked good. Now, you had an opportunity to get Donovan Mitchell, so you had to break that up. But I think that's the only way to change things. Because I see a lot of NBA GMs, and some I would consider my friends. Kobe Altman, he and I have been hanging out and goofing off at Cavs games since he was a low-level scout, and now he's a general manager. I don't always agree with everything they do, and I think that just following what the other successful team did is not good for business. And the NBA is a business. You want to win basketball games, but you need to make money and you need to draw eyeballs and they need to get it figured out. Otherwise, hey, look, sports die or take hits all the time. Boxing. Boxing used to be NFL, baseball, boxing, all tied for like number one in the country. Those were the main things. Who watches boxing now? Diehards. Diehards watch boxing. And guess what? It's on life support. Professional wrestling used to be huge, even though it's scripted. Or is it? Anyway, so professional wrestling, huge. It's taken a massive, massive hit. And, people who follow those sports will be able to tell you why I can't. But I think the NBA is becoming dangerously in that, it was this huge, huge thing. And look, I think basketball in this country is kind of a little bit of a mess. But the NBA sets the tone for everything everybody else does. And I love basketball. I love going to high school games. I went to a middle school game, friend of the family the other day. Couldn't have enjoyed it more. Women's basketball, I love it all. So, I think what we need to realize is these aren't people who are hating basketball. It's people who really care deeply about the game that are growing concerned. And I think that the good news is the NBA recognizes that. We heard Adam Silver come out and he said, we are investigating what needs to be done here because something needs to be done or we're going to be boxing. He didn't say that, but that's the message. And I think the fact that every team feels the need to put up 40 to 50 3-pointers a game is a problem. Whether it bothers me individually or you individually, it doesn't really matter. It's bothering the masses. It's bothering the people who care about basketball. It's bothering legends. It's bothering LeBron James. This is what the people running basketball want. How do you convince them that it's not the best thing for the game? I don't know. So, are there too many 3-pointers being taken in the NBA and probably basketball worldwide? I every once in a while I'll tune in. I have the ESPN app, so I'll tune into a college game, and it'll be like Army versus the Citadel, and I'll watch the game for a little bit, and which, in case you were thinking, boy, I was just wondering whether Sam Amico needs to get out more, and clearly the answer is yes. I think that we have to. When I watch those games, I'm like, these guys are taking too many threes. And guess what? They're not hitting 33, 34%. They're hitting 20, 25. And it's bad. It's like, work the ball in and get a good shot. Quit chucking up threes because you think if you make them, then you're improving your shots to win. But guess what? If you don't make them, it's bad on the eyes. And there are better shots that you can get that you should be open to taking. All right. Well, with that, I promised I would go shorter today. Well, guess what? Monday, I think that was 32 minutes. Guess what? We're at 40 minutes. So, your thoughts on this always matter. And most of you are giving your thoughts. You don't like it. But what does the NBA need to change? What is keeping you from watching the NBA? Obviously, a lot of people will say, and I agree with this, the NBA season doesn't really start until Christmas, right after Christmas. That's when I start paying attention. I understand that. But I think the problems go larger than that based on the discussion that people are having on social media, the commissioner, BJ Armstrong, NBA legends, and of course, LeBron James. The NBA has issues. The NBA sets the tone for the rest of basketball, the way it's played, not just in this country at the lower levels, but really across the world. So I don't know. Believe it or not, this is the first Hoops Wire Live where Sam Amico has not had all the answers. Or maybe the 15th one. But either way, I hope you have a great weekend. I may or may not see you before Christmas. It depends on what they decide. And by they, I mean the powers that be at 330 to go, who basically run my life, and I couldn't be happier that they do. On a serious note, though, thanks so much for tuning in, and let me know, and here at 330 to go, let us know what you think about this abundance of three-point shooting and where you stand on it, because really your voice is the one that matters. So on that note, we will talk to you soon, and have a great night, and see you then.